Welcome to ACC. This is the very first of what I hope is going to be many car reviews. Today we have something very cool. It's a Huracan Spyder. A lot of women pay really exorbitant amounts of money for blow waves. You could literally buy one of these for 450 grand and change, and every time you drive it, get a nice hairdo like mine. I don't know what's going on here. We drove all the way from Malaga out to Whiteman Park today, and it's windy. So you guys know all of the numbers when it comes to the Huracan. They've been out for ages. They've got 500 plus, 550 plus horsepower. It's got some fancy gearbox in it. It's got some fancy diffs. It's got a roof that goes up and down. No one really cares. What everyone's really interested in, I think, especially people like myself, is what these cars are actually like to drive. I mean, this is the first time I've actually ever driven a Huracan today, sort of more than just around the block. And it's a very, very accessible supercar. The migration from the Gallardo to the Huracan, from Lamborghini ownership to Audi ownership, is obvious in the way that this thing drives, the way that this thing operates, the switch gear. It's all very intuitive, it's all very easy to use, and it all feels pretty solid. The Gallardos of old, great cars, sounded amazing, had that Italian character. Who knows if they were going to start in the morning. You know this thing's going to start every time, and if it doesn't, well, it's pretty much just an R8 anyway. So coming around the front of the car, this one in particular has had some modifications. It's got the forged carbon and the tricolore stripes, which really kind of set off the white paint quite nicely. And if we come around, very well appointed. The leather feels quality, the Alcantara is great. They're actually not that difficult to get into. I'm 6'1", and I fit pretty well. I must say the headroom, not so great in a Spyder. I think I'd be better off suited to a coupe myself, being a taller gentleman. But I think for the majority of people, this is going to be more than adequate. You're going to fit in here, no problem. In terms of the switch gear, it looks very busy, but it is all quite intuitive. Start stops here. Park brake, just like an Audi RS5. Push it down, we're good to go now. The operation for windows, etc., all seems to be up here. You've got your hazards, you've got traction control off, which, let's face facts, if I owned it, it would never be on. Seat heating. I don't know if it's got seat cooling. I don't think it does, which would actually be pretty good in this environment, but maybe not so much in Italy. But everything else seems to work fairly easily. I like the way that the Lamborghinis have differentiated themselves from the Audis, though, in the way that you operate it. So the steering wheel itself is very different. We've got our mode select here. Go down to Sport, to Corsa. That's going to open up the valves. Give us that V10 sound that we all know and love out of this run of vehicles. There really isn't much better, I think, than the sound of that V10. I reckon they absolutely nailed that. The earlier ones were probably a little bit better, being a bit screamier, but I could listen to this thing all day and not complain. Right, let's talk about practicality in this thing. If you're like me, you can't afford two cars, so if you're gonna spend 450 grand and change, you're gonna drive this thing every day. Can you fit the shopping in it? Let's find out. I'm pretty sure that this is the bonnet release. Yes! The next question is, am I gonna be able to open it without looking like a tool? The answer is yes. Well, not a lot of room in here, I gotta say, but being a single man, I'm pretty confident. Let's get a close-up shot of this, Max. Every Lamborghini owner must carry a full tool set just in case their Italian cafe espresso machine decides to break down on the side of the road. You never know when you're going to need a good socket set. But being a single man, I reckon I could get my week shopping here pretty confidently. So we're going to give it the tick. Dailyable? Yes. So that's a quick high-level overview of the ins and outs of the Huracan. Max and I are going to take this thing for a spin now so that you guys can hear it. We'll talk a little bit more about how it drives, but honestly, all you guys want to hear is the engine, so let's get to it. So first time behind the wheel of the Huracan, honestly, not at all intimidating. A lot of the supercars of old, very difficult to see out of. You had no visibility from the rear view mirror. The wing mirrors were always small, very difficult to see. This thing feels very, very easy to drive. You can get in it. I'd be quite happy to let my mother or my grandmother drive this car and feel confident that they're not going to punt it straight into a curb because they can't see. To be honest, all of that quickly gets forgotten when you put it into Corsa mode, as we are now, and we give it some right pedal, like this. These things aren't super fast by modern standards. There are cars that are a lot faster, but nothing sounds like a V10 engine. This thing is the king of the road in terms of sound, in my opinion. The only thing that's beating this is something V12. You just cannot beat it. The sound is intoxicating, it's addicting. I think if I had this car, I would lose my license immediately because I would need to do 7,000 RPM at all times. And this is standard. We're gonna go through a tunnel now. Let's see if you can hear this. Oh, I could do that all day. I think we've even gone the wrong way, but you know what? It doesn't even matter because we're just gonna drive anyway. Oh, I'd buy one of these cars just for that noise. I can't get over it. Now that the roof's closed, there is actually quite a lot of headroom. I said before I'm 6'1". I thought that I would struggle with headroom, but I actually fit fine. I think there's plenty of room with the roofs closed. It doesn't feel too claustrophobic. Like a lot of the supercars of old, very, very stiff suspension. You feel your fillings rattling out of your brain every time you drive it down the road, and Perth roads aren't great, let's face facts. This thing's quite comfortable. I think this is in Corsa, this is in the most hardcore mode. If we put it into comfort and just, well, what's it called in Italian? Strada. I don't even know what that means, but I assume it means comfort. Very, very comfortable to drive, and I think that's a lot down to the fact that Audi's taken the reins of Lamborghini and really pushed the drivability of these supercars. These cars are meant to be driven every day, or not meant to be driven every day, but they're meant to be enjoyed. How terrible would it be if you spent $500,000 on a car and then every time you drove it, you got out of it sweaty or full of anxiety because you were worried about where you parked it? This thing, nothing like that. Very, very comfortable to drive, very easy to drive, very easy to see out of. You don't feel intimidated at all. The only thing that really lets it down for me personally is the fact that it's a convertible. I think if I had one of these, I'd take the hard top. I think they just look a little bit more aggressive. But, I mean, let's face facts. Guy gives you the keys to his Huracan Spyder. You're not saying no, especially when they sound like that. So look guys, that's us wrapping up this review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got some insight. Again, these are reviews not for talking about the numbers and how much horsepower and how fast it goes around the Nürburgring. No one cares, everyone's seen it, it's been done before. You guys want to understand what it's like to drive these as a normal human. I'm a normal human. I'm lucky I get to drive some of these cars sometimes and I really enjoy it. But the thing is, I'm going to try and share, and ACC is going to try and share what that feeling's like so that you guys can get an understanding as well. And I hope one day it inspires you to go work hard and go buy your own. And if you do, maybe you can lend it to me and I can review it. See you on the next one.